Howdy, Aggs. Your Aggies win 30-17 against the Gamecocks. Let's do a walk and talk. Let's talk about this game. Let's react to it. For me, I think the overarching reaction I've got to this whole thing is that it's a struggle win. It's always good to get a win. I'm not going to turn down a win. I never would. But I think anybody watching that game knows it was a struggled, labored win. Felt like we were, I don't know, in the 38th hour of a first pregnancy, and I wouldn't know anything about that, but trying to give birth to a 12-pound bowling ball or something. I've heard it's excruciating, so that's kind of like what this was. I felt like we left a whole lot of points out on the board. I felt like, and I predicted the game 37-17, so it was real dadgum close to where I thought it would be. Thought we should have won by 3 touchdowns on the regular, so we underperformed in my mind. But even then, 42-45 seemed like it was out there. We're settling for field goals and everything else. So that's my quick reaction. But let's dig a little deeper. Let's break this down some more. I got kind of 3 main positives and 3 main critiques, I would say, of this game. Here's what I'm thinking. My number one positive from this game is a big burly of a man takeaway. Edrin Cooper is going to get paid. That guy is really, really good. He forced the fumble towards the end of the game. Basically sealed the deal for that win. And he is just something else. I continue to be impressed by him every single week. And he is number one positive of this team right now. What I'd love to see from this team, I'd love to see them play the way that he plays completely throughout. You know, the way he plays, if we had that in the first quarter, how excited would we be to have every player that's flying around the field trying to make plays like that? That would be something else. That's my number one positive. I'll give you a couple more too. How about, I think 3 for 3 on 4th downs? That's pretty big. We have struggled on 4th downs all season long. So it's really, really nice to see us being able to get something done on 4th down where we had not. And I think it actually had a couple other implications too, although they might have been wasted overall. You know, we seem to have struggled. I won't get into my kind of bads just yet, but we've seemed to struggle this year with confidence. And possibly that stems from Jimbo putting his confidence in the players, right? He's kind of not been, I would say, very supportive of, going for it on 4th down. It's almost like he didn't believe in the guys. How can they believe in themselves if he's not going to believe in them? It's a paradox of a question for sure. But I think when we went for it, we started to breathe some life into this program, within that time frame, and these guys started to see, hey, we can do this. We can do this. And so they started executing. And lo and behold, we roll off, 21 points in the second quarter, unanswered, something like that. So big deal for that. Really, really big deal for that. The second one, actually, that is my second one. My third big takeaway is the power of Anais Smith and just how good we are when we are able to just really, go at him, let him work, let him do his thing. It seems like we're handicapped most of the time. It seems like we don't want to do what we need to do until we're forced to do those things. It's like we've got this secondary game plan where we're constantly like running at half throttle. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's 3rd and 13. So now let's do all the good stuff that we've got, right? I don't understand it. So here's some things we got to change. There maybe are a few things that we could point to, but start off with just a few. I think key areas. One, I don't think we've got an answer for replacing DeBerry yet. Harmon was in there, and there are some times when it seems like it's working, but then there are times when it seems like we're just losing all awareness. So I don't think the game has slowed down for him yet. Maybe sometime it will. Have to, excuse the horn. They're trying to alert us of, making sure there's no, BS maroon Kool-Aid in this particular video, because whereas we won, we just can't have that. So they're trying to make sure I'm well aware of that. I am. Okay. So there's some times when he just kind of goes blank, it seems like. I don't think the game slowed down for him, and it might in the future, but right now it's kind of hit or miss, and it's probably going to continue that way for a little bit. My philosophy is changing into, at this point, especially 8 games into the season, that we are what we are, and that's what we're going to be. So for the foreseeable future, how you saw this team play today is you're going to get that the rest of the season, no doubt. I just don't see any way that's going to change. We've got to address a few other areas, though, if we want to make any progress. I see at least 1-2 more losses on the schedule, and I would say in large part because we can't run the ball. 105 yards on the ground today. I guess you might say, well, it's 100 yards. That's what, you at least want 100, don't you? That's what you're kind of aiming for. Well, I suppose, but some of it's coming in chunk plays. We had a couple runs, I think, one from Ruben and one from Amari Daniels. And beyond that, that's the bulk of our running game. We're not great short yardage. We haven't been all year. And we just haven't really found a way to do that well. And it stems for my second problem, which is that our offensive line is just continuing to struggle. There seems to be no end in sight. And that's coming off a bye week. We're coming off a bye week, and this is what we're doing. So, again, you are what you eat. I don't know what they're eating on the bye week. I don't know what they're eating in practice, but I think you can take that Confucianism or whatever it is, some type of college football proverb crossover, and apply it to our situation. Maybe it's because this team just doesn't have any confidence. I think you could summarize them in their play as in they just don't believe in themselves. I think it's pretty plain and simple. I don't think they believe in themselves. I don't think that's been instilled in them. I don't think it's been coached into them. And you're like, well, how do you coach in your players to believe in themselves? Well, you enable them to execute plays. So let's use that whole execution logic against the narrative that we continue to keep getting. We're not executing. Yeah, well, teach them how to execute. Show them the pathway to be able to execute. Everybody can execute pretty much most anything, especially these guys at the level that they are playing at. But you've got to identify the areas in which they're struggling in. And then you've got to address them. And you've got to persist with that until you start to become proficient in it. And then you work until you master it. That's my theory on why the problem is there, but I think it's safe to say either way, they don't believe in themselves. I think until they do, they're going to continue to play the same way that they've played. And you'll get the same thing you got here probably next week. You're going to get a flat performance. You're going to get a struggle performance. And that performance is going to be susceptible to an uncharacteristic loss. A loss against a team that it shouldn't be, but it will, because we're going to leave the door open. Thankfully, we closed a few of those doors today during the game, or it was very much in jeopardy that this team was going to come out and beat us. So we didn't, and I'm thankful. And so I'll take that for this week. I'll work with that for this week. But we have to make some major adjustments. Jimbo needs 9-3. He needs it so he can convince us that he's actually doing and matching the same investment that you and I are all giving to this team. We need to see that he's giving the same investment too. There was a moment on the sideline when he was fired up because somebody didn't execute getting in player and personnel, and I think a play called, and I was happy to see that. I really was. That has to start coming out in him holding people accountable to do what they need to do. So that's simple from my standpoint. Okay, y'all. Glad we got the win. Your Aggies are now 5-3. We'll look back at it next week and see if we can make it to 6.